show up. Let's just suppose that those million voters, if they did show up, might have broken for Harris 51% to 49%. If that's true, that's a plus 20,000 vote margin for Harris, which is just about what she's trailing by now. Now, if those million voters under the age of 30 voted for Harris like they voted for other Democrats like Jerry Brown or Barbara Boxer, about 59-60% support, the margin would be about plus 180,000 votes for Kamala Harris, and she'd be leading Cooley by about 2% of the vote right now. So, the stoners against legalization who warned that Prop 19 would lead to the raiding and closing down of Prop 215 dispensaries may have helped elect the Attorney General who has vowed to raid and close down dispensaries. And the sad irony here is the language that they oppose.
The following program, Norml Show Live, is intended for responsible adults only. We advocate for the repeal of marijuana prohibition for adults. We discuss the science, culture, and controversy about America's marijuana laws. We do not advocate or encourage any illegal activity and advise all listeners to learn their state and federal marijuana laws by visiting norml.org, Norml.org. Opinions and claims made by guests and advertisers of Norml Show Live are their own and do not necessarily reflect the philosophy and policies of Norml. Listener discretion is advised.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
From the promise of legalization.
And I think we need to think if we criminalize our marijuana laws.
To the agony of prohibition.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
The National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws presents Norml Show Live, Marijuana Nation. Now, here's your host, Norml's outreach coordinator, Radical Russ Belville.
Good afternoon, tokers and tokettes, and welcome. It is Monday, December 5th, 2011, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. Oh, man, we are back. So glad to be here. I was abducted by a swamp lizard who secreted me off to Margaritaville and plied me with hard drugs. That's right, alcohol. And let me tell you, the results were, shall we say, explosive. But we're not going to go there. Key West is behind me now. A good time was had by all. Vacation is over. We are back with plenty of stuff to cover on the Norml Show Live. Also want to remind you, Cannabis Carrie, she's still on vacation. And, that's one of the benefits of working for free for 3 years is you get to take as much vacation time as you want. So Carrie will be back as soon as we get her back. But for now, on vacation. And I'm just going to be here taking care of the news for this holiday time and all of the other stuff here on Norml Show Live. Tons of stuff to get to that happened while I was gone. Today, I'm going to address the article that I had published in Kush magazine that is causing a lot of controversy. Seen a whole bunch of the Facebook postings about it. The danger of dabs. We'll be talking about that. And in the second hour, taking your calls at 971-533-7111. If you disagree with me, call in and tell me. It is talk radio. This is what we're all about here, is talking these things out. So let's get it done. So we'll talk about that in the Radical Rant at the end of the show today. Also, coming up in our hemp headlines, our Norml news, a study that showed lower driving fatalities in the states that have legalized medicinal use of cannabis. We'll dig into that. Also, the governors of Washington and Rhode Island petitioning the federal government for a rescheduling of cannabis. We'll talk about that. Dispensaries in California closing due to the U.S. attorneys and the federal crackdown. They're going after the landlords now. And also, I want to give you parts of a piece written by Radley Balco in the Huffington Post today, probably the nation's foremost expert on the use of SWAT raids and military force in policing in America today. He is the Paul Armentano or the Dr. Mitch Earlywine of that particular subject. So I'm going to talk about one of his pieces that you definitely got to give it a read. It's holiday season for music today. Roots Monday will get you some reefer jazz with the Tall Brothers. We're smoking what we want for Christmas. And then for our cannabis conversations at half past the hour, we're speaking with Terry Franklin, who is with the Freedom Caravan. He's going to tell us all about what that is and what you can do to help support his efforts in ending adult marijuana prohibition. It's Norml Show Live, the voice of the marijuana nation. We've been off for 2 weeks. Thanks for coming back. Tell your friends. Get on with us at live.norml.org. Join the chat. Join the community. Together, we can end this marijuana prohibition. We're back with the news right after this.
This is Norml Show Live, the voice of the marijuana nation.
Weedmaps.com. I'm Radical Russ from Norml. In my job as outreach coordinator, I travel every month, and when I'm on the road, I need a fast, accurate way to find the medical marijuana dispensaries in the area. So I turn to Weedmaps.com. Weedmaps.com has the best dispensary locator online or on your mobile device. Search by zip code or let Weedmaps find you, and in seconds you'll have the addresses, phone numbers, and customer service reviews for the medical marijuana dispensaries in the local area. Weedmaps.com also has a section devoted to helping you find a doctor who understands and recommends medical marijuana under your state's law. You can even check prices on the Medical Marijuana Stock Exchange. Coming soon, you'll even be able to find the listings of Norml attorneys and chapters, local head shops and grow shops, and the best weed-friendly businesses. Weedmaps.com has the information you need to be an informed cannabis consumer. Visit Weedmaps.com today, a proud sponsor of the Norml Network.
Inhaling deeply of the sacred smoke.
Hey, is it 420 yet? This is Rick Cusick from High Times Magazine, and you're tuned into Norml's Audio Stash.
The law offices of Omar Figueroa would like to remind you to stand up for your rights. Please do not give up your precious liberties. There's nothing wrong with standing up for our constitutional rights, and in fact, it's the only way to honor the Constitution that gives us these precious rights. Treat law enforcement with respect and respect the Constitution by standing up for your rights. If you are detained or arrested, stand up for your rights by repeating, I respectfully invoke all of my legal and constitutional rights. I do not consent to any search or seizure. I want to remain silent, and I want to speak with my attorney, Omar Figueroa. Omar Figueroa has more than a decade of experience in federal and California courts and graduated from Yale University, Stanford Law School, and Trial Lawyers College. Please contact the law offices of Omar Figueroa at 415-489-0420 or 707-829-0215. or on the web at www.omarfigueroa.com.
Medical marijuana, industrial hemp, consumer cannabis. It's time for this week's Norml News with Cannabis Carry.
Cannabis Carry is still on vacation. I'm Radical Russ with your Norml News. You want to lower traffic fatalities? Try legalizing medical marijuana. That's at least according to a paper published in the University of Colorado Denver professor Daniel Rees and Montana State University assistant professor D. Mark Anderson. The study looked at traffic fatalities nationwide for the years 1990 to 2009 to see if there was any correlation between highway fatalities and liberalized medical marijuana laws. They found that in the states that legalized the medicinal use of marijuana, both traffic fatalities and alcohol consumption declined. This from the press release. A groundbreaking new study shows that laws legalizing medical marijuana have resulted in nearly 9% drop in traffic deaths and a 5% reduction in beer sales. Daniel Rees, a professor of economics at the University of Colorado Denver, who co-authored the study with D. Mark Anderson, assistant professor of economics at Montana State University, said, quote, our research suggests that the legalization of medical marijuana reduces traffic fatalities through reducing alcohol consumption by young adults, end quote. The researchers collected data from a variety of sources, including the National Survey on Drug Use and Health, the Behavioral Risk Factor Surveillance System, and the Fatality Analysis Reporting System. The study is the first to examine the relationship between the legalization of medical marijuana and traffic deaths. Quote, we were astounded by how little is known about the effects of legalizing medical marijuana, Rees said. We looked into traffic fatalities because there is good data, and the data allow us to test whether alcohol was a factor. Anderson noted that traffic deaths are significant from a policy standpoint. Traffic fatalities are an important outcome from a policy perspective because they represent the leading cause of death among Americans aged 5 to 34. The economists analyzed traffic fatalities nationwide, including the 13 states that legalized medical marijuana between 1990 and 2009. In those states, they found evidence that alcohol consumption by 20 through 29-year-olds went down, resulting in fewer deaths on the road. Now, this is very interesting data. We'll talk more about this with Dr. Mitch Earlywan on our Wednesday show. I do caution folks that this isn't a peer-reviewed journal-type study. This was kind of an employment-based survey. And so until it goes through peer review, you can't make too much out of it. But it does seem to corroborate what we've seen in other studies about both marijuana use and driving and its substitution effect among young people with alcohol. And you can bet that might be part of the reason why the California Beer and Beverage Distributors Association found it necessary to contribute $10,000 last year to oppose Proposition 19. And a little bit more on that from the drugwarrant.com. Pete Geither does a great blog out there, and he points out Maya Salovitz's article in Time about that reduction in traffic deaths. And it's been suggested that the study clearly gets life-saving benefits from young people switching to marijuana. And the point Pete wants to make is that we never get very far with the public claiming that driving while high is better than driving while straight. But they're much more likely to understand the clear truth that drunk driving is far more dangerous than stoned driving, so that a substitution is an overall positive effect. So, extra comment there from Pete that I thought needed to be mentioned. Now, on to our next story. This is a big story that broke over my vacation of governors in Washington and Rhode Island petitioning the DEA to reclassify medical marijuana. This from the Washington Bureau of the Los Angeles Times, November 30th. A pair of U.S. governors appealed to the Drug Enforcement Administration to reclassify marijuana as a drug with accepted medical uses, saying current federal law makes it difficult for states that have legalized medical marijuana to safely regulate it. The petition, filed by Governor Christine Gregoire of Washington and Governor Lincoln Chafee of Rhode Island, asks the government to change marijuana from Schedule I to Schedule II under the Controlled Substances Act. Schedule I drugs are those determined to have no accepted medical use in the United States. Schedule II drugs are those that have some accepted use and can be prescribed, administered, or dispensed with controls. 16 states in the District of Columbia currently allow the use of marijuana for medical purposes. 10 more states are considering doing the same. And this goes back to the governors, Gregoire, Chafee, and many others who got these letters from the government warning them about if they had medical marijuana programs that had marijuana distribution, if the state sanctioned that, then state workers could be subject to federal prosecution. It was clearly a scare tactic, as we have not seen this take place in New Mexico, in Colorado, in other states that already have dispensary outlets going. But nonetheless, it did scare enough of these governors, or perhaps provided enough of a political fig leaf for these governors to oppose dispensary operations that they really didn't want to see happening anyway. But it's good to see these governors finally coming around for this petition for rescheduling, although in Governor Gregoire's case, it's kind of a year too late, isn't it? But we need to remember that from Schedule I to Schedule II is but the first little baby step that needs to be taken. Bringing marijuana to Schedule II in the Federal Controlled Substances Act allows the states that have medical marijuana to go forward with their programs as they see fit, but they can still regulate that quite strictly. Remember that cocaine and methamphetamine are Schedule II drugs that can be prescribed, that have recognized medical uses in the United States. And if you're caught with those drugs without a proper prescription, you can be just as busted as someone who's caught with marijuana or heroin. You can still do time. So Schedule II is the first step. It does allow the states greater experimentation, but it's not going to do anything to help people in Oklahoma or Mississippi or Tennessee, places that are in desperate need of medical use, and we're all in need of legalization for everyone. So keep our eye on the prize that marijuana needs to be taken off the Controlled Substances Act, off of the schedules. But moving from 1 to 2 is at least a step in the right direction. From the Sacramento Bee, some California medical marijuana stores are forced out of business by the crackdowns. It's the twilight hour for medical marijuana dispensaries in Sacramento County. 8 marijuana stores from as many as 99 dispensaries that opened are left. Dozens have closed in recent weeks amid fears of federal prosecution and aggressive actions by the county that include litigation and fines for building code violations. The city of Sacramento has frozen permit applications for existing dispensaries, but has allowed most to stay. Sacramento County's crackdown in the unincorporated areas, by contrast, is having a dramatic effect on California's quickly shrinking medical marijuana industry. The United Food and Commercial Workers Union, which launched a drive to unionize pot workers during the California dispensary boom, estimates 20% of marijuana stores statewide have gone out of business in less than a month. Dan Rush, who directs the union's medical cannabis division, said letters from California's 4 U.S. attorneys threatening dispensary landlords with loss of their buildings put a chill on the trade. Quote, "There is a high rate of people closing voluntarily," Rush said. "They didn't want to cause trouble for their landlords, or they're closing to get a chance to figure out how to come back into compliance," end quote. In San Diego, nearly 2/3 of some 220 dispensaries have shut down amid threatened federal property seizures and city lawsuits. Well, this, of course, is a shame. The last thing we need in California or any other state are fewer jobs. The last thing we need is more people out of work, less businesses contributing to the tax base. But that seems to be exactly what California is going to have to suffer through, and the other states as well, as the federal government continues this Herbert Hoover-like crackdown on medical marijuana. It's almost like the last throes. Remember Dick Cheney talking about the last throes of the insurgency? This is the last throes of the prohibitionists against medical marijuana, and the squeeze is coming here. And it's just a shame that we couldn't get more support from a lot of these medical marijuana dispensaries when they were flourishing, when they could have put money behind Prop 19 and maybe, push this battle a little bit further, gotten a little more support. Now we find ourselves in a place where these dispensaries are being restricted. We have fewer and fewer dollars to pull from for legalization campaigns, for increased medical access campaigns, because of less and less business, more and more restriction. I sure hope it's not too late for us to get our act together in 2012 and make some lasting changes that can benefit everyone, even the healthy tokers. One of my favorite writers on the issue of the drug war is Radley Balco. He writes for Reason Magazine, and he's recently become a senior investigative reporter for the Huffington Post. An amazing post he has up on today, and it's very long, so I'm not going to read all of it to you. I encourage you to please check it out. It's called SWAT Raids, Stun Guns, and Pepper Spray, Why the Government is Ramping Up the Use of Force. And I'm going to throw the link out here in the chat room if people want to read the entire piece, because it is really amazing. And it opens with talk of the Columbia, Missouri SWAT raid, the drug raid that we covered. I believe it was last February, that the video surfaced where the dogs get shot, and they didn't even find enough marijuana in the guy's house to charge him with a misdemeanor. And yet the guy's dogs get shot. His kid was in the room or in the house at the time, and bullets are flying. I mean, we all remember that. And we've been talking a lot about these SWAT raids with respect to the war on drugs, but he takes this to a broader level and ties it in with the use of the pepper spray at the Occupy movements and the use of tasers against victims, and does a really good job of painting the larger picture on this. And I just want to read a couple of paragraphs from this to give you an idea. Dress cops up as soldiers, give them military equipment, train them in military tactics, tell them they're fighting a war, and the consequences are predictable. These policies have taken a toll. Among the victims of increasingly aggressive and militaristic police tactics, Shai Calvo, the mayor of Berwyn Heights, Maryland, whose dogs were killed when Prince George's County Police mistakenly raided his home. 92-year-old Katherine Johnson, who was gunned down by narcotics cops in Atlanta in 2006. 11-year-old Alberto Sepulveda, who was killed by Modesto, California police during a drug raid in September 2000. 80-year-old Isaac Singletary, who was shot by undercover narcotics police in 2007, who were attempting to sell drugs from his yard. Jonathan Ayers, a Georgia pastor, shot as he tried to flee a gang of narcotics cops who jumped him at a gas station in 2009. Clayton Hellriggle, a 23-year-old college student, killed during a marijuana raid in Ohio in 2002, and Alberta Spruill, who died of a heart attack after police deployed a flash grenade during a mistaken raid on her Harlem apartment in 2003. Most recently, voting rights activist Barbara Amwine was raided by a SWAT team in Prince George's County, Maryland on November 21st. The police apparently have raided the wrong house. The drug war has been the primary policy driving the trend, but since 2001, the federal government has also used the threat of terror attacks to further militarize domestic law enforcement. This includes not only finding new sources of funding for armor, weapons, and gear, but also claiming new powers for the war on terror that are then inevitably used in more routine law enforcement. But paramilitary creep has also spread well beyond the drug war. In recent years, SWAT teams have been used to break up neighborhood poker games, including one at an American Legion Hall in Dallas. In 2006, Virginia optometrist Sal Culosi was killed when the Fairfax County Police Department sent a SWAT team to arrest him for gambling on football games. SWAT teams are also now used to arrest people suspected of downloading child pornography. Last year, an Austin, Texas SWAT team broke down a man's door because he was suspected of stealing koi fish from a botanical garden. SWAT teams are even sent to enforce regulatory law now. In Hartford, Connecticut, a SWAT team recently raided a bar on the premise of suspected underage drinking. The same happened at a fraternity at Washington State University. Often these inspections are merely a way for police to perform a full-on drug raid without the hassle of obtaining a search warrant. Tactical units in Orlando recently raided a series of black-owned barbershops under the pretense of an occupational licensing inspection. Once inside, they scoured the business's customers and employees for illicit drugs, mostly coming up empty. There have been similar incidents at bars, with police departments sending SWAT teams on drug raids under the cover of a regulatory alcohol inspection, and once again, getting around the need for a search warrant. Check it out. Radley Balco on Huffington Post. All right, folks, time to take a break. It's got to be 4:20 somewhere. It's 4:20 in Key West. I know that. We'll be right back after this.
It's 20 after the hour, and we have to take a short break, if you know what I mean. Please support these sponsors who support Norml Show Live.
Oh, have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. Have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. If he said he swam to China, he would sell you South Carolina. Then you know you're talking to that reefer man.
Alternative Medical Choices offers healthcare the way it should be. Easy to access, patient-centered, team-based, and quality-focused. We offer a variety of natural, affordable healthcare treatment options like primary care, group acupuncture, massage, and assistance with OM&P registration. As a patient, you will have a team of experts working with you to make you the best you can be. Call Alternative Medical Choices at 503-288-5579 or check us out on the web at altmedchoices.com.
Each of us, a multitude.
Wow, I'm suddenly feeling Wesley fungible.
There isn't a sharp line dividing humans.
Or maybe fungibly Wuzzy.
It's a very wuzzy line. It's a very wuzzy line. It's getting wuzzier all the time.
Sometimes it's hard to tell.
We find animals doing things that we, in our arrogance,
Norml Show Live reminds you to never consent to a search. If you're holding and you consent, in most states you will be arrested immediately and you will go to jail. If you don't consent to a search, police may try to intimidate you by threatening to bring in drug-sniffing dogs or try to fool you by saying things will go easier if you consent. Yeah, easier for them, sure. Stand your ground, refuse the search, and ask the officer if you're free to go. If they still detain you and eventually find your contraband, you'll be no more busted than if you had allowed the search. But by refusing the search, your attorney has a chance to win your acquittal before a judge. If you consent to the search, your attorney's hands are tied. You can find a list of Norml Legal Committee attorneys specializing in marijuana cases by visiting the Find a Lawyer link at norml.org.
It's time for your daily Toker Tunes, the best in 420 friendly music from all genres that uplifts, entertains, and informs the public. Today we bring you tunes for Roots Monday, our celebration of the music that evolved into the popular modern music of today. We pick the best of blues, country, folk, and jazz with a 420 feel and serve it up for you every Monday. If you'd like to submit your song to be played on Norml Show Live, send it to us at stash@norml.org. Now here's some more great independent marijuana music for today's Daily Toker Tunes.
All right, well, it's that holiday season, and so I'm going to break out a lot of the stoner Christmas songs and stoner Hanukkah songs that we can find out here in our Roots Monday and other Daily Toker Tunes libraries. This next group, of course, is one of our favorites. We're all big fans of the Reefer Jazz, and speaking of the Reefer Jazz, I believe Cannabob's in the room. Hey, Cannabob, what's happening? And we got a great group just north of me in Vancouver, BC, called the Tall Brothers. We've played them before, and I encourage you to check them out at their website, tallbrothers.ca. The Tall Brothers are a global award-winning Reefer Jazz band based in Vancouver. They are Bill and Tom Small, actual brothers who grew up in a musically gifted farm family in southwest Ontario. Their father was 5 when he began performing out-of-town one-nighters in a child prodigy duo with his sister, and their mother was a young Debussy fan who learned Clair de Lune by his ear off radio. 6 siblings were musical from an early age. Bill led 70s rock bands in his early teens and jazz bands with horn sections soon after. He married young, had kids, and very quickly sold $100 million in real estate until work-related stress and life-threatening ulcers forced him to reevaluate the meaning of life. He divested all of his real estate holdings and became a Red Cross director, then formed a bluegrass band with brother Tommy and started gigging solo in Montreal clubs, honing formidable jazz vocal and guitar chops. Upon discovering that cannabis had cured his ulcers, Bill moved to Vancouver and launched the British Columbia Compassion Club Society with Hilary Black, initially operating out of his apartment. Since May 1st, 1997, the BCCCS, there's 3 C's in there, is first of many providers of low-cost, high-quality organic medicinal cannabis to anyone with a doctor's prescription. Tom began playing different instruments at age 5 and writing songs at age 8. At 14, he was the main featured soloist in his high school jazz orchestra that took first place in the Canadian Stage Band Festival competition. He studied music industry arts at Fanshawe College under the tutelage of producer Jack Richardson, who produced Alice Cooper, all of the Guess Who, and was a mentor to Bob Ezrin of Pink Floyd. Tom pursued private music study with money earned from audio engineering and performing, and bussed, traveled, and played many genres of music. He's a founding member of the Montreal Jazz Bop Lounge Institution's Swing Dynamique. This group featured 2, but as many as 5 Duke Ellington alumni at once, and boasts 60 former alumni, including the legendary Guy Nadon on drums. The band's moniker, the Tall Brothers, derives from one of these entitled Man with the Jive, Light Up Baby and Get Real Tall, is the lyric. Their own songs soon eclipsed these classics in quantity and perhaps in accessibility too, updating the genre to address today's heroes and issues for a younger generation, while maintaining the sonorous bounce that turns grandma into a teenager again. Their fame spread internationally when they headlined the 2004 Cannabis Cup in Amsterdam, and last September 2008 swept the Global Marijuana Music Awards in Texas. They continue to enjoy success with song licensing deals in TV, film, webcasting, and their overnight internet sensation hit CD, Simply Business. So we are going to turn it over to the Tall Brothers with our Roots Monday tune for this holiday Monday. It's Smokin' What We Want for Christmas from the Tall Brothers. Enjoy.
Ain't none of your business what we're smoking at Christmas. Ain't none of your business. We're smoking what we want for Christmas. Ain't none of your business what we're smoking at Christmas. Ain't none of your business. We're smoking what we want for Christmas. Put down that gun, drop it, and have some fun. Get out of your funk, and smoke some skunk. Ain't none of your business what we're smoking at Christmas. Ain't none of your business. We're smoking what we want for Christmas. Ain't none of your business what we're smoking at Christmas. Ain't none of your business. We're smoking what we want for Christmas. Ain't none of your business what we're smoking at Christmas. Ain't none of your business. We're smoking what we want for Christmas. Put down that gun, drop it, and have some fun. Get out of your funk, have some smoke. Ain't none of your business what we're smoking at Christmas. Ain't none of your business. We're smoking what we want. We're smoking what we want. We're smoking what we want for Christmas. Smoking what we want for Christmas.
You want a copy of that song for your iPod? Check out the Daily Toker Tunes at the Stash blog by surfing to stash.norml.org and choosing Media and then Toker Tunes from the main menu.
As High Times Senior Cultivation Editor, I'm often called into the field and asked to sample or even identify exotic strains of marijuana in their natural habitat. Now, for the first time, I've compiled more than 120 of my favorite strains into this single field guide designed to fit into your pocket as you travel the world in search of your favorite plant. From a friend's closet grow room to the wilds of Northern California, this single guide covers all of today's best-known strains, plus heirlooms and throwbacks, including High Times quality photos and information on each variety's genetic heritage and growing characteristics, plus my personal notes on aroma, flavor, and potency. So this is Danny Danko, author of the official High Times Field Guide to Marijuana Strains, wishing you good times and great ganja.
The official High Times Field Guide to Marijuana Strains is available at hightimes.com and finer bookstores.
Perhaps this scientific method could be extended to other fields of learning. Perhaps I could lead the way to a new age, an age of rebirth, a renaissance. Nah.
Hi, I'm Keith Straub, the founder of Norml. In all the years since 1970 that I've been fighting marijuana prohibition, I've learned that drug warriors love to confuse the public with statistics. Lately, they've claimed that there are more teens enrolled in drug treatment for marijuana than ever before. It's a statement that, while true, is intentionally misleading. What they don't tell you is that marijuana arrests have skyrocketed to over 800,000 arrests per year. They also don't tell you that we've gone from a few dozen drug courts in the 1990s to over 2,500 drug courts today. The kicker is that those drug courts sentence teens routinely to drug treatment for marijuana whether they need drug treatment or not. So they arrest more people for pot, require them to enter drug treatment, then claim the higher treatment numbers justify more pot arrests. It's an absurd proposition, but no more absurd than banning a plant. Learn the facts about pot. Visit norml.org today.
What makes something funny? How does humor impact health and psychological well-being? How can you incorporate humor into everyday life? A concise, reader-friendly introduction to an important but often underappreciated topic in modern psychology, Humor 101 explains the role of comedy, jokes, and wit in the sciences and discusses why they are so important to understand. Psychology professor Dr. Mitch Earlywine draws from his personal experiences in stand-up comedy to focus on how humor can regulate emotion, reduce anxiety, and diffuse tense situations, expose pretensions, build personal relationships, and much more. He irreverently debunks the pseudoscience on the topic of humor and leaves readers not only funnier, but better informed. It's part of the Psych 101 series from Springer Publishing, Humor 101 by Dr. Mitch Earlywine, Ph.D.
Legalization, decriminalization, lowest law enforcement priority, medical marijuana, ganja sacrament, consumer cannabis, industrial hemp. The world of marijuana law reform involves many different aspects of cannabis that interact nearly every public policy discussion in America, including healthcare, the economy, global climate change, law enforcement in prisons, immigration, religion, free speech, energy policy, and war. Now, we take a look at how re-legalizing marijuana will change the world in our Norml Show Live Cannabis Conversations.
All right, welcome back, everyone. And joining us by telephone here is Terry Franklin, who has worked for a long time with the Cannabis Reform Coalition over a couple of decades, working also in Amherst, Massachusetts on their legalization rally and the Extravaganza, but is here today to tell us about the Freedom Bus Caravan. So, Terry, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Russ. I'm glad to be on with you today.
Now, Freedom Bus Caravan, what we're talking about here is getting active, getting political, and bringing this fight to the politicians. And tell us how Freedom Bus Caravan is going to do that.
Well, that's the thing. We want to bring out and show our political power to the political class, and also to the media, and also to the American people, to get more people out of the closet. Mm-hmm. And where better to do it than the primaries?
Right.
We're having a presidential race coming up this year, and I'm specifically concentrating on the New Hampshire primary right now.
Exactly. Now, folks, if you want more information on the Freedom Bus Caravan, just check out freedombuscaravan.org. And this is protests over the next, 5 weeks for the New Hampshire? I guess that's coming up pretty quick, isn't it?
Yeah, 5 weeks. We've actually been up there on the ground a little bit already. Well, actually, our first foray into New Hampshire was back in June when they had a debate some of the Republican candidates up there. But we're waiting on Newt Gingrich actually at this point. He's one of the worst of the worst. He wants to treat drug policy as an issue where you have to bring more punishment to solve the quote unquote problem. And I've been checking his website daily. He doesn't have his schedule up yet for this week, but I'm really hoping he goes to New Hampshire this week, or if not this week, perhaps next week. Because we're going to hit him big with a large protest as soon as he shows up in the state.
Mm-hmm. Now the Freedom Bus Caravan, you've got a literal bus. I'm looking up on the website here, very colorful looking bus. That you're just loading that up with people and inviting them to drive along with you. I mean, how does this work?
Well, it's all very fluid at this point. We don't know what's going to happen. People. That particular bus is just a photograph of a bus. It's a Guatemala chicken bus.
Oh, I thought that was the actual Freedom Bus. I was going to say it's very beautiful.
That's not our bus. No, we do have a gentleman in Boston who has a hemp oil run bus. John Napoli from the Hempist, and he's going to be up there with that. I don't know if any other people are bringing buses. This whole thing has, it's metamorphized over the last year and a half, and it turns out that we may have to scale back a little of our more grandiose plans. But, from talking to political people on the ground in New Hampshire, there is one hotel in Manchester, which is like the state's only really big hotel, where all the candidates go, all the media goes, and most of the political stuff that happens is within a couple blocks of that hotel. So we're going to be on foot an awful lot.
Right.
Certain days we may go off to Keene or Portsmouth or something, where we take some buses and probably a lot of cars, too, as part of the caravan. But we're going to be on foot in Manchester mostly.
Well, this is great. This is, getting people's, people can sign up on Facebook for this or that or read blogs or whatever, but getting people's faces in front of those politicians, making it a human issue, forcing them to have to confront the people that are bringing this issue to them makes all the difference in the world. I know when the last campaign, the Obama during, 2008, I remember them tailing a lot of the candidates, even back to 2004, tailing them and getting YouTube videos and direct information from these candidates. I notice you have Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all of that. Is that part of the process here, is doing a video recording of these candidates?
Very much so, yeah. We have a number of, in addition to my own camera and several other people's cameras, we're going to have some documentary people working with us too. So
excellent.
We're going to have, there's some stuff on YouTube already, mostly speeches and things. I do want to encourage people to go to our website, as you said, freedombuscaravan.org. And link up on Facebook and link up on Twitter specifically, because we haven't had very many people sign up on Twitter at this point, but we're going to be using it a lot when we're on the ground.
Sign up right now. I'll connect us right now while we're talking.
Because it's Freedom Bus Carav. The AN at the end is cut off because Twitter has a limit of how long your word can be. But, that's going to be one of our tools when we're on the ground, going from protest to protest in the course of, hours and days.
Excellent. That's a very good way. We've seen from a lot of these Occupy movements and other social mob, flash mob type of things that Twitter can be really effective in getting people, especially in the dynamic state, of a political campaign. I mean, they make announcements of where they're going to be at what time, but rarely is it ever perfect, right? They're 5 minutes late here or 10 minutes or 15 over there. They reschedule to go over here. So, definitely follow Freedom Bus Caravan there. Just go to freedombuscaravan.org. They've got all the links up there so you can find out what's going on. So after New Hampshire, is there a plan to do something after New Hampshire with the Freedom Bus Caravan?
Well, this has been a project, as I say, we've been working on this for a year and a half, getting all the groundwork done, and we are specifically aiming at New Hampshire, but we want to inspire other people all across the country. because the primary is going on. The primaries and the caucuses will be going on for the next 4 or 5, 6 months, all in every state pretty much. And there are a number of really bad candidates out there on the Republican side, Newt Gingrich and Mitt Romney. There's also some really good ones like Gary Johnson and Ron Paul, who are on our side that we should be showing support to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know that Governor Johnson, being excluded from almost all of the debates, has I think he's put his whole all his eggs in the New Hampshire basket, so to speak. So I know he's going to be doing a lot of stuff up there in New Hampshire that could also help get the message out. But you're right, we need to do not just oppose the ones that are bad on the issue, but we definitely have to support the ones that are good on the issue. And
in New Hampshire, there is stuff going on the Democratic side as well. Mr. Obama is running for president again this year, and I encourage anyone anywhere in the country, when he shows up for a fundraiser, he goes to the elite to get some money, show up there and protest him, because he's been doing a lot of really bad things, especially out in California where you are. But in New Hampshire, we have an interesting case because he has a challenger in New Hampshire. There is a candidate named Vermin Supreme who is he's a performance artist. He's a comedian, and his comedy act is running for president.
Okay.
And like Pat Paulson or Colbert, and really satirizing the political process. And anyway, he's a real good legalization supporter, and he's the alternative to Obama on the ballot in New Hampshire. So we want some protest votes for him, to put some pressure on Mr. Obama. So he won't be running nationwide, I don't think, at this point, but he is on the ballot in New Hampshire, and we want people to come out for Vermin Supreme.
Yeah. That brings up a political point that I think is beginning to be felt among a lot of reformers. Maybe it's just me, but for the longest time I was always, could never vote for a Republican because, Democrats will be the one that legalize, but then we see more and more, one Mr. Clinton and now Mr. Obama. It doesn't seem to be the case on either side. They both seem to be full of politicians that want to throw us in cages for using a plant. So I think you're right. I think it's important that we let Mr. Obama know you can't just take these votes for granted. You can't just say, well, what are you going to do, vote for a Republican? Because there's a couple of them over there who are looking kind of attractive on this issue.
Yeah, they certainly are. I mean, Ron Paul is actually moving up in the polls, and I'm sort of hoping that the other Republicans have been knocking each other off left and right, and could be Ron Paul's the one left in.
There you go. Just
wouldn't that be something?
Let Romney and Gingrich battle each out, and then like the tortoise and the hare, Ron Paul just kind of wins by persistence. Well, Terry, this is awesome that you're doing this. The freedombuscaravan.org. Check that out. They're protesting, going throughout the New Hampshire primary season. We hope to see you up on some of the mainstream media as well. Hope you get some contacts out there.
We're aiming for that. And are you coming out by chance?
I don't think I'll be able to get to New Hampshire. Okay. You're getting from one corner of the planet to the continent to the other.
Yeah, but you'll be having a lot of stuff going on in California too with the politicians. That's the important thing is there are ballot initiatives coming up. There's legislation. There's a lot of national legalization groups working in that sort of area, in terms of lawyers, people with suits. But we're actually getting out, this is a grassroots, group who is getting out to the people and to the media. And we're also, we're everything is synergistic. We're here. We're going to be training people in grassroots practical politics for the later, ballot initiatives and things. So this is a very useful synergistic thing to have street protest in addition to the legislation and the ballot initiatives.
All right. Well, Terry Franklin from the Freedom Bus Caravan, I appreciate you joining us on the show. It's freedombuscaravan.org. They've got links there to donate. I'm sure you guys could use donations. Are you taking other than cash donations? You take in-kind donations of vehicles or miles or anything like that?
Well, it'll all have to be worked out on the ground, and if you're bringing a vehicle, you have to show up in New Hampshire. I don't know. We're going to be needing food, of course. We're going to be needing people with cameras, laptops. As I say, it's going to be an incredibly fluid, nutty campaign sort of thing, and it's all going to work out, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
All right. Well, Terry Franklin, thanks so much for joining us on Norml Show Live. Appreciate it.
great to be here. Thank you.
All right. Check that out. The freedombuscaravan.org, just grassroots organizing. And again, my point is always, it's not that you have to join Norml, although, God, we'd love to have you, but get involved somehow. And if there's not a Norml near you, or you don't want to be in a chapter, you just want to do a protest or, organize a rally, do it. I don't care what acronyms are behind your name or what title you give yourself. If you're on our side to help keep us out of a cage for growing and consuming a plant, then we're friends. We're all cool here. Hey, when we come back, we're going to talk about the danger of dabs. Stay tuned.
We're joined also by Barry McCaffrey, General Barry McCaffrey, I should say, retired general, military analyst at NBC, and most importantly for this conversation, former National Drug Policy Director, very familiar with this conversation.
Norml Show Live, where the truth about marijuana gets more than a minute to speak.
General, I'm going to begin with you.
Everybody's got a habit, some good, some bad, to reach the comfort zone. Some people have all kinds of people around, some people can't hang alone. Whatever it is, whatever you like, you're gonna make it through your afternoon.
Careless, hot,
just say no.
No matter what you call it, it's a huge part of popular culture.
Where'd you learn that, Cheech? Drug school.
You don't need weed school. You just need a copy of the new book, Pot Culture, the A to Z Guide to Stoner Language and Life.
Hey, this is great, man.
Even if you never smoked marijuana.
I never used marijuana. Sorry.
Don't think you smoked marijuana.
I experimented with marijuana a time or two and didn't inhale.
Or you used to smoke marijuana.
I inhaled frequently. That was the point.
Pot Culture by former High Times editor Steve Bloom and Shirley Halperin will answer every question you ever had about marijuana culture.
Has that marijuana made it back up here yet?
Check out Pot Culture, the A to Z Guide to Stoner Language and Life at Amazon.com or visit potculturebook.com today.
Too bad, man. I just stopped smoking yesterday.
Watch Norml Rocks with Herb Thrasher live from Rolla J Studios every Friday at 8 p.m. Pacific, with replays Saturday at 7 p.m., Monday at 2 a.m., and Wednesdays at 8 a.m. right here on the Norml Network.
You want answers?
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
You want answers?
You have offended my family.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth.
And you have offended the Shaolin Temple.
You can't handle the truth.
Surely you can't be serious. I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Radical Rant. All right, folks, something got published up in Kush Magazine. I had submitted this months ago, I believe. Just got published, though, recently while I was on vacation. And the word I got back was, oh, Russ, you really pissed people off this time. So I check in on Facebook, and sure enough, a few people that know me personally are pissed. So here's what it's going to do. I'm going to just read you the article here for the Radical Rant. I'm just going to read it without commentary. And then when we go off into hour 2, we can talk about it. And I can tell you my interpretation and feelings on this. You can give me a call at 971-533-7111. If you want to talk about it, that would be great. Here we go. The danger of dabs. This really isn't your father's Woodstock weed. The space shuttle is taking off inside my head. At least that's what it sounds like in the headphones. I'm maintaining my gaze on camera 1 and reading the script as best I can. In my peripheral vision, I can make out the familiar blue flame of the creme brulee torch and the orange glow of the titanium nail. It almost matches the Boise State colored windscreens on my microphone. To my right, my guest has used a dentist pick to roll up a dark brown dollop of resiny goo from a thimble-sized plastic container. He's deftly holding that between the ring and middle fingers of his left hand, while his left thumb and forefinger grasp a small, rounded piece of glass. His right hand is wielding the torch, steadily directing the blue tip of the flame on the nail, which is a small piece of titanium shaped a bit like a golf tee. That nail is mounted on an elaborate yet elegant water pipe by glass artist Sheldon Black. As we go to commercial, I mute the mics and the space shuttle in my head is silenced. I turn to give my guest the hold off until commercial speech, but pause as I watch him effortlessly stop and set down the torch, drop the piece of glass over the nail, bring the Sheldon Black to his lips, drop the resin ball onto the nail, and inhale a deep percolating hit of silvery gray hash oil smoke evaporating off the orange hot titanium.
Want a dab, mate? He finally manages to ask after a paroxysm of coughing. A little dab'll do ya. I still have 100 minutes left of the show to do, I explain, while politely declining his offer. I wonder if my limey friend was even alive to see those Brill Cream commercials, or if they ever even aired in England. Well, no and no. Thanks, Wikipedia. And marvel at the power of advertising when a 24-year-old Brit knows the tagline to a 1960s American hair gel jingle. Dabs are exploding in popularity. Literally. Dabs is a term popular in the Western medical marijuana states to refer to the smoking of butane hash oil, also known as butane honey oil, or simply BHO. Medical marijuana patients like my British friends swear by it. I can take a dab of oil in the morning and it will mediate my Crohn's symptoms until the evening. If I had to get by on flowers, I'd be puffing cones all day. Flowers, by the way, is what the hash oil aficionados are now calling good old-fashioned cannabis buds, also known as finely manicured sinsemilla or simply pot. In my area, the price of those flowers has crashed to $5 to $10 a gram, but the BHO prices are rising from $20 to $30, even up to $40 a gram. The butane part of BHO refers to the solvent used to extract the cannabis resin from the plant. A large glass tube is packed with cannabis, usually the discarded shake left from trimming the buds, but increasingly actual bud is used, and liquid butane is forced through the tube. The butane strips the resins from the plant to collect in a container, and then the butane evaporates away. What is left is a very potent form of hash oil. Now, if you remember anything from chemistry about things that end in ane, or have even ever refilled a lighter, you know that butane is an extremely flammable gas which can be stored as a liquid under great pressure. Those are the cans of lighter fluid refill you can buy in many stores. And if you've deduced that combining very stoned people with combustible materials is a recipe for disaster, I'm way ahead of you. On my show, I've had to cover numerous headlines involving some explosion set off by an ignorant hash maker who works behind closed doors and unventilated spaces, blissfully unaware that butane is a heavier-than-air gas that likes to pool on the floor near pilot lights, switches, and discarded cigarette butts. I love my dabs and I love making BHO, but I'm getting tired of defending it, says my show's young co-host, evoking Chris Rock's routine on misogynistic rap music. We'd just reported a story from Oregon about what the local media mistakenly called cooking hashish, because there is no flame or cooking involved in BHO. Just because some idiot blows up a motel room with his girlfriend and 2-year-old inside because the dumbass doesn't get the concept of ventilation, now everybody wants to hate on BHO. I don't even use flowers anymore. They don't touch my pain at all. And when I make BHO, it's outside, in the country, and it's safe, and I know what the fuck I'm doing. Grab-a-dab-a-goo. One talking point I've heard from opponents of marijuana legalization for years now is, this is not your father's Woodstock weed. The story varies, but basically they say the weed the baby boomers fondly remember was only 2% THC, and the chronic today is, or the skunk as they would call it in the UK, is a bazillion percent stronger. It's a bullshit story because A, the ability to test for THC potency didn't exist until the 1970s. B, 2% THC is what we call hemp, or ditchweed. And C, really potent weed has always been around, and those boomers smoked it. I mean, just open their photo albums and listen to their music. Those fashions and tunes were not worn and sung by people stoned on 2% THC ditchweed. But with the BHO, we do have something that is objectively more potent, much more potent, than even the strongest Panama Red or Thai stick from back in the day. As part of my job, I have the privilege of reporting from backstage at the biggest pro-marijuana festivals on the West Coast. At every one at which there has been dabs of hash or hash oil, there has been at least one, even experienced pot smokers, wilting like Scarlett O'Hara with a case of the vapors. And rarely do I see dabs not followed by intense coughing fits. It's not that the hashish preparations are any more dangerous. It is the same non-toxic cannabis, after all, says one marijuana researcher I interviewed. But it is more potent, so bottom line, you don't need to take these big lungbuster hits like you're trying to win the clear the bong contest. Well, I'm a bit confused. I understand that BHO is non-toxic as regular old pot, but regular old pot doesn't make me pass out and potentially smash my head on something. Doesn't a hacking cough and occasional fainting count as more dangerous? A nation of dabbers. Now, a segment of the new Ken Burns documentary Prohibition was entitled A Nation of Drunkards, and it detailed how the second half of the 19th century saw a country of beer and cider drinkers increasingly turning to hard liquor. Drinkers still drank as much as often as culturally dictated, but they swapped 3 to 10% alcohol for 30 to 60% alcohol. The resulting public drunkenness and rise of saloon culture led to a few temperance movements fueled by angry mothers and religious leaders. This moral crusade that tarnished all the responsible users of alcohol with the deplorable excesses of a few alcohol abusers culminated in national prohibition that took 13 corrupt, violent, hypocritical years to undo. In the late 1970s, acceptance of marijuana use was rising fast. From Nixon's proclamation of war on drugs in 1971 to President Jimmy Carter calling for decriminalization of 1 ounce of marijuana for personal use before Congress in 1977, Gallup poll responses approving of legalization rose from 12% to 30%. But marijuana was linked with cocaine, with the idea that both were just fun, harmless party drugs. Covers and centerfolds of counterculture magazines featured lines of cocaine as well as purple crystalline cannabis buds. When cocaine lit up the headlines with the tragic accidents of Richard Pryor, John Belushi, and Len Bias, along with the new super potent, to the media, crack cocaine, support for marijuana legalization dropped back down to 16%. Now we have a nation that has increasingly accepted medical cannabis. 1/3 of national jurisdictions, 16 states plus DC, have enacted medical cannabis laws. There's a good chance of more than one state placing a marijuana legalization initiative on the 2012 ballot. Will BHO be the new whiskey, driving an angry mother's temperance movement? Will dabs be the new crack cocaine that scares the hell out of Main Street? One thing is for certain, dabs are tailor-made for scary news footage B-roll. Shortly after the exploding motel room incident here in Oregon, there was another news story about the proliferation of patient clubs, and that's our word for dispensary, co-op, MCC, collective, whatever euphemism they call money walks in and weed walks out in your state. In the story, an activist on camera heats up a skillet, a flat piece of metal that does the same job as the titanium nail, using a Coleman camp stove-sized propane bottle with a torch attachment. With dabs, your local action news team gets to do a marijuana story that shows a crack pipe torch being used on a black, sticky, heroin-looking goo made from a process that blows up like meth labs. The danger of dabs isn't so much physical as it is the danger of the public relations that would be inevitable from this coming about. It's only getting more popular, so we've got to begin strategizing on how to deal with this issue. It's only a matter of time before It's Not Your Father's Woodstock Weed comes back with a vengeance. All right, that's our radical rant for the day, and we'll go out here, see if we can get the Liebermator to behave now. But we'll take your calls here on this. Want to hear what you have to say about this article. I know a lot of people are upset about it. I had some people saying I was throwing people under the bus, and I was comparing dab users to crackheads. I don't think I did that at all, but let's talk about it. 971-533-7111 is the number if you want to get on the line. All right, folks, that's all the time we've got for the podcast, but I'm going to continue the recording of this, so if we get people calling in, we can play those responses on a later show so podcast listeners can get their fill, too. For everyone here at the Norml Foundation, I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is Norml Show Live, the voice of the Marijuana Nation.
Take it on one more time. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth.
All right, welcome back, everyone. We've got a caller on the line from the 847 area code. Welcome to the show.
What's going on, Radical Russ?
Oh, just, beating back. Beating back all the hate. It's a good day.
Yeah, good. Well, I'm appreciating the way you're handling the blowback. I thought your article was actually a really good one. This is Brad Simon. I'm actually the president of SSDP at Lewis and Clark Law School.
Oh, excellent. Thanks for joining us here on the show. I appreciate that. And I think sometimes maybe people read what they want to see, they want to be offended by something, because I really thought I went out of my way to say, no, this is a perception issue, not an issue with the dabs themselves. But
I agree, but it's a controversial issue, and I appreciate and respect the way you tackled it head on.
Yeah.
And I understand the way people reacted too, because it's hard when, the way you speak or what you write down, people are going to have their subjective reactions to what the truth is in what you're trying to do.
Now, which school did you say you were at?
I go to Lewis and Clark Law School.
Oh, right. That's here in Oregon, right?
Yeah, I'm actually in Portland now.
Right. Okay, I remember who I'm talking to now. Okay.
Yeah, I work with John.
Right. But have you seen? I mean, you're younger than I am, right? Have you seen this as like as a new thing? I mean, have I?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I had never heard of dabs, I lived in the Netherlands for 6 months, and in all my time in the Midwest, which was until I was like 22 years old, I think I moved here.
Yeah.
I had never even heard of dabs or hash oil. I'd heard, of hash.
Yeah.
And obviously everything else about the flowers.
Yeah.
But what's really the issue here, and what I agree with you as a public relations nightmare, and especially when it comes to medical marijuana, is that the science behind dabs isn't clear yet at this point. The court rulings, as far as I know,
well, in California, it's pretty clear.
Hash is not usable marijuana, right?
Well, in California, it's pretty clear. Chris Conrad tried to get this, declared as legal, and I was just reading some posts on this earlier. But no, California, it's not. I have to ask some California lawyers. But I know here in Oregon, supposedly the law is cannabis and any usable preparation thereof, and we think that means hash, but do they? Let's find out.
And I think the right person to talk to about that would be Lee.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that this is an issue that's currently being figured out right now, and it's still, like a lot of medical marijuana law, is a gray issue, and it's not really clear whether or not something like dabs is actually all criminal, no matter what.
Well, I was hearing from the folks in the Cannabis Cup in Amsterdam, as they were getting raided and everything, that supposedly the Dutch government treats these concentrates as a harder class of drugs.
And well, they are harder. I mean, there's much more, it's a much higher concentration of THC and all your other ingredients that make cannabis what it is.
Yeah, and it's still, to be clear, it's still as non-toxic as cannabis. It's still just cannabis, but, it is a more potent form of it. And that's what I tried to, in that paragraph about the nation of drunkards, the whole prohibition thing. When I watched that Ken Burns thing, and they talked about how cider drinkers then moved on to whiskey, and then they had the whole drunkenness in the saloons, and that's what brought the women's temperance movements, I saw an obvious parallel. I was like, oh my God, there's the more concentrated alcohol that when people weren't clear about it and weren't honest about how it was being used and didn't adjust their habits for the potency of it, that's where we had the problem.
And also another parallel, I'm glad you brought up the Ken Burns documentary, because I actually read what's the prohibition book that documentary is based on. I read that this summer, and I've seen the documentary, and it's all great stuff. And the parallels between modern, cannabis prohibition and that are so clear, especially like the medicinal whiskey.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But it was even more lax, and the war on drugs is way more extreme than prohibition law was, which is interesting, because it's much easier to enforce against us.
Yeah, I mean, and the more you learn about it, and you find out how intertwined it is with treaties, even international treaties that we're a part of, single convention treaty, controlled substances act.
The U.S. is definitely pushing its muscle all around the world, and that's why you've seen changes in the laws of countries like, in Europe right now, some countries are becoming more liberal. You have your Portugal and your Denmark and things like that, but the Netherlands, the haven for marijuana tourism, is basically closing its doors. You have the Cannabis Cup getting raided. You have cities in the south like Maastricht, where I actually studied for 6 months. Coffee shops are closed off to foreigners nowadays.
Yeah.
And it's crazy, and that's all just from U.S. pressure.
Yep. And again, that's why, I think we really have to be honest and forthright about pushing for having, I always liked Keith Stropp saying, I smoke pot and I like it a lot, and we want the same respect as beer drinking friends. right? That's the thing, is that if we can accept a regulatory structure for alcohol, which is clearly something just for intoxication, then I think it's easier to get people to think of pot like wine than to get them to think of pot like jogging or, medicine necessarily.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Or like a wellness, well-being, health-related thing.
Yeah.
Because it's not for everybody. It is for, a great majority of medical marijuana patients, I would say, especially in Oregon. Maybe not nationally.
Yeah.
But here, you have to have a serious debilitating condition to get access to medical marijuana program.
Right. And that's another thing that could be made, I can make clearer is that whenever this discussion comes up, there's the discussion of California medical marijuana and then every other state that has it. It's two different worlds. California's got for any condition a doctor deems necessary. Everybody else has like a series of flaming hoops to jump through, before you can get your card. So it is a different situation state by state.
Mm-hmm. But it's even a different situation in the north versus in the south, like how LA runs things versus how San Francisco is running things.
That's true.
And at the end of the day, there's so many factions involved in this issue, both on the side of wanting to maintain prohibition and the parties that are going to benefit from that and the stakeholders that benefit from keeping it illegal, and all the different people that could benefit from just having marijuana regulated like wine. And that includes medical patients. And that's to their detriment not to be pro-legalization, because they're going to keep having their rights screwed over as long as it remains that way.
And one compromise I could see coming out of this is to recognize that there is both recreational and medical use, and perhaps make it that, as we move in these baby steps, that I could see a spot where, okay, it's legalized for personal use up to an ounce, but if you're a medical user, you can have a pound. Something like that.
Yeah,
where they make
absolutely. It should totally be tapered to the needs of patients. And I think that taxes from the sale or permitting or licensing of dispensaries, however we wind up regulating it in Oregon, and I think it really is just a matter of time. I think those taxes should directly go into a fund that treats more serious drug problems and treats medical marijuana patients and prioritizes them over recreational users.
Right. Yeah, and that's the thing, is that as long as we recognize that there is many aspects to this and stop trying to fit marijuana into one spot, into one thing. Well, it can only, all use is religious use. All use is medical use. No, it's not.
And it's a complicated plant, and it's going to be a complicated solution, but it's by no means an impossible one.
Right.
This is one that we have to really seriously sit together with. And I think when the time comes to legalize marijuana and regulate it, the battle's not just going to cease, and it's not going to be over as soon as people pass a vote or something.
No.
But it's going to wind up with law enforcement and stakeholders on the other side having to meet with entrepreneurs or lawyers and whatever to patients to figure out what really is the best way to do things for the best or for the highest amount of people.
Right on.
Well, but I think that unity is necessary in the movement. I hate to see any blowback from your article that I really do think was well-intentioned and smart. I hate to see blowback or any sort of stuff. But what the movement needs is unity, hands down. And there's just too much factionalism, especially in Oregon. We're the best example of that. We need to just sit at the same table together, put our differences and our penis and our sensitivities aside, realize that we have shit to get done, and just appreciate, our differences and just respect one another and allow, the conversation to just move forward instead of stagnate.
I appreciate that, Bradley. Thank you for your call. We got another call coming in here. 760 area code, you're on the air.
760 area code, you're on the air.
Hey, Russ. Great discussion you were having with that last guy.
I got it. Yeah, bring down your background there. You've got something going on as far as the show. It's giving us a big echo. Can you get that?
As far as the show, it's giving us a big echo. Can you get that?
Yeah, I'm gonna put you on hold here until we can get that taken care of. But if you can find a way to turn off the computer or the radio in the background, I'll give you a minute or two to try to address that. Also got Grandpa Poobah. I just got your contact link there, so we'll get you on too. Where he is. Well, we'll go to you right now. How's that? Grand Poobah, you're on the air. What's up?
Hey, Russ, how are you?
I'm doing good, and I want to thank you for calling in.
Okay, Russ, if I didn't believe in you, I wouldn't have called in. I just, look, here's my interpretation. Is the first sentence when I read it is the danger of dabs. So it's like, I guess it gets my ears right up because it's saying that dabbing is dangerous. And that's not something I really believe.
Okay. Now, would you contrast that though with the danger of dabs is kind of an open-ended question at the beginning of the article, and when you read the very last paragraph, it seems to be clear that I'm saying the danger is the PR.
Right, and I saw that, but also realize, okay, you say the way you talk about it, you talk about people being fixated and staring over a torch, which is what crack cocaine users used to do.
Yeah.
I don't think that's how we sit around and smoke it. I think maybe someone looking at it the first couple of times is going, wow, what the fuck is going on?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've dealt with that as much as anybody. Like, that's not a big issue. You then say people don't understand and that there's some negative health benefits of BHO. I don't even want to, go down that trail. And you could have got into the medical benefits of BHO and other ways to make extracts. But you say it's something stronger. But then you're the one who brings up alcoholics and prohibition. You throw it in as the next paragraph. It does tie the two things together, that here are people going from something stronger, from something mild to something stronger.
But is that not true?
It's not true. I've been smoking the same oil for 35 years.
And that oil is not stronger than buds?
It's not stronger than the oil I was smoking 35 years ago.
No. What I'm saying is that people are moving from buds to oil, and that oil is much more potent than buds.
Right, only because more people know about it. But we were smoking oil, like anyone who was growing pot was smoking it 35 years ago.
Oh, sure. I don't dispute that. Yeah.
And they're the guys who taught me.
Right. But won't you agree, though, that this is a much bigger phenomenon now than back in the day? Because I've been, like I said, smoking pot for 20 years.
No question, it's getting more popularity. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, you were the one who were pointing out the negative perceptions.
Right.
We're going to get hit with that anyway. And you can say people will look at us as this, but in reality, we're this. It's as I wrote in. Here, I smoke a tremendous amount. You see me on cam smoking a tremendous amount forever. Okay, I used to smoke an ounce of pot a day.
Mm-hmm.
I smoke 4 grams of oil a day now.
Right.
Which is, okay, this is way healthier for me.
I agree.
Okay? That's the kind of information I think you should be putting in an article about what dabs are for. It's to help somebody.
Okay. I get what you're saying there. I do have to admit, though, in these articles, I have like a 1,200 word limit. So, there's only so much I can put into them.
Right.
But I did try to point out that for, in the case of my engineer, where it's the only thing that can help his pain,
right, that's one sentence. But then you talk about, it looks like heroin.
It does.
No, it doesn't. It's amber. It's not black. It's
not the goo I've been seeing lately. It's kind of a black, dark brown goo.
They're making it really bad.
Well, maybe so. There's what we need to do, an educational article. Make it the right way, damn it.
Again, the thing is, something like that, I would have loved to have seen something like that because that's alleviating the fear of it. Mm-hmm. What you're doing is saying these are all things to fear, and we have a PR nightmare. And that, to me, is taking... Wow, look, you dabbers, you need to hide in the closet and let us get legalization taken care of, and then we'll deal with you. Instead of saying, look, you're part of our community, you're part of our culture, you're the people fighting for us, you're all the patients who are fighting for us. Why? Because it makes it look like you're just cutting us off, and that makes me feel like I'm being thrown under the bus for legalization. And it should be educating people about what we're doing and why we're doing it, not in showing the things to be scared of. It's, as I said, why don't you say, hey, look, everybody, everyone have a banana. No, wait, you have to eat the peel. Because part of it isn't as good and tasty and doesn't have all the good stuff in it. But you have to have that to have the bad stuff. That makes no sense at all.
Well, okay, so let me see.
On that basis, when you look at things
let me restate to see that if I've got it right, is that the part of the problem here is that in my pointing out of what I see and giving my analysis of how I think people will respond to that, by doing that without balancing it with here's why your perception is wrong and here's why it's a good thing, it makes it an unbalanced article. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. I can accept that criticism. I understand where you're coming from on that, and
that's where the action came from. And if we didn't love you, I don't think. Look, everyone who said something bad or half of the people who jumped on you are in the room right now.
Yeah, and that's cool, and I understand that point. And so, I think I've done a yeoman's job though on the blog and in print and on the show many times discussing all of these aspects and how cannabis is safe and how using oils could be safer because there's less smoking and so on. But I get in the context of someone who picks up Kush magazine has never read me before or seen me in print, that I can see how that could be a perception there. I can see your point.
Right, Anthony, and that was the point I was making. It's you're us.
Mm-hmm.
You're our leader, and if someone says, "Look, our leader has a question, and this may not be a good thing," how good is it?
Mm-hmm. Okay, I see where you're coming from.
And that was it, and that was my point, and that's why I got, and a lot of people, I think that's why a lot of people got upset because that's what we saw.
All right. Well, I appreciate you calling in. Thank you for that. And that's what I'm talking about. Constructive criticism. That's great. I love that. And that's fine. I will be the first person to say that I am not perfect and that, I am learning and expanding my worldview as much as anyone else. So, thank you, Grand Poobah, for that. I do appreciate the call. Still, I think part of this is confused by the fact that, yes, there are people who need dabs. They must have oil. They are such intense medical users that without it, they are going to be, like he said, smoking an ounce a day. And you don't want to be doing that. You hack your lungs out, right? It's a safer, better alternative in that respect. But let's not also ignore another subset of people that are like, hey man, let's do dabs because it gets you really fucked up. Because there are those too. And let's also not ignore the ignorant folks out there that are going to blow up a hotel room with their girlfriend and their 2-year-old in the hotel room trying to make BHO when they don't know what the hell they're doing. I'm hoping the controversy of this is something that brings out more articles on this and brings out more people talking about it and, giving instruction on how to make it safer. Like Poobah said, do more on water extractions and other methods that might be safer. Absolutely. That's great. And that's kind of part of what this controversy and why writing this way, this is what it's all about. I wanted to bring these things onto the table. And I think, yeah, there could be a balance here where I say, yes, dabs are great and they're just higher potency. And if you make them right, they're safe and so on. Yes, could have done all of that. But I was writing in Kush magazine. Okay. And part of writing these articles is understanding who your audience is and what their level of understanding is of the issue. And I would think that the average reader of Kush might even be a dabs aficionado. And so with that in mind, maybe they already know all that stuff. They know the good stuff. I mean, obviously from the responses I'm getting back from the people who are upset, they know the good of dabs, right? So maybe it's my job to be devil's advocate here. Maybe it's my job to sound an alarm. Hello, this is going to be an issue we're going to have to address. This is going to be a news footage thing that's going to happen. This is going to be the way the prohibitionists once again try to bring in some other harder drug to make marijuana look bad. And we've already seen it somewhat with the whole synthetic pot thing, right? The whole synthetic cannabinoids, the spice and all that. Again, once again, we make this synthetic pot that causes terrible things to people, and then people associate pot with the terrible things. Things we need to think about, things we need to work on. That's the point. And I'm glad we're all in it together. We're growing together. And, I might piss you off again sometime. But as long as we can understand it's all a policy thing we're working on and it's not personal, I hope we can keep that in mind.